Hello, welcome back to Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the newly branded The Football Masterclass. We are delighted to be back. We weren't here last week, but we've recharged the batteries and we're back for another show. This time, we're going to be talking about Anthony Martial. Now, I just want to say before we start, and the boys will definitely agree with me, we don't want this to be abusive. We don't want this to be reactionary. We're not going to go in and say Martial's rubbish, sell him right now. We're going to have a proper discussion about Anthony Martial. We're going to talk about. We had a really great question from one of our listeners, Cobb. So shout out to Cobb. He sent in a very, very detailed question / his point of view, and we are really going to address it today. And we're actually going to look into some of the statistics as well. We prepared some to actually see if is he underperforming compared to last season, because I think the statistics might actually shock you. So without further ado, Joe, welcome back. How are you feeling about Martial? Because he really is a curious case, isn't he? He's someone who's, for me, very talented. You can't deny that. But he's not showing that level at all at the moment.
No, I'm disappointed there. I thought you could ask me how I feel about the new intro, mate. It's absolutely on point. I love it, mate. Fair play now. Great stuff. And I love all the new rebranding. But yeah, Anthony Martial, I'm probably less underwhelmed with him, shall we say, this season. But I think for me, this season just sort of follows the pattern, doesn't it? I mean, look, we'll dive into the stats a bit more and the facts later on, but his career just seems like a whole bunch of up and downs, doesn't it? We saw a fantastic season from him last year, and obviously he's followed that up with a poorer season this year. I mean, look, we're going to talk more about it, so we'll get more in depth about it as we go on. But I mean, there's so much we can talk about here, and I'm sure we will. But one thing I just want to finish off by saying is that I think it's a shame, because I still think he is a fantastic player, and of all the Manchester United players in the squad, he's probably the one that frustrates me the most, because he's just, I think you tweeted about it the other day, he is so talented, but we just don't see enough of it.
Yeah, that's exactly it, mate. You know, I look at him and I think the way he bursts onto scene at Manchester United, obviously, it's always difficult, Ciaran, because scoring that goal, right, the one that he scored against Liverpool in that fashion, everyone's going to remember where they were with that goal. I mean, that's one of my favourite moments of the post-Sir Alex era. It's not been many to shout about. You know, you can probably say Marcus's penalty against PSG. I mean, that says it all, really, about how dire things have probably been compared to what they were the previous sort of 20-odd years. But when you actually think about the way he burst on, if anything, that's kind of set him up to fail. I mean, is it a case of actually, you know, he scored in the most incredible fashion that he's actually he never lived up to that?
It's an interesting one. And yes, I agree with your point that I think everybody remembers where they were. I don't know about you guys, but I was working at the time in a bar and it happened and the whole place went either crazy because it was just United fans and Liverpool fans. So yeah, I think everybody remembers that. I think that first season, it wasn't just that Liverpool goal. I thought he was really good that first season because he showed a lot of promise. And I think this came at a point where we were so used to so many bad signings coming in. We saw some of those that kind of came in and left. And it was one of those that we were thinking, okay, I remember it was the last day or two of the transfer window. One of the French journalists brought it in and everyone was like, where is this one coming from? And he hit the ground running, and it was one of those players that I think everybody gravitated towards. But again, like you said, it's when you start so high and a lot of people and a lot of fans really, really like you early on and set these really high expectations, it's hard to live up to it. Like we've seen high expectations recently now with Bruno. The difference is he has lived up to every single expectation we've had and has actually exceeded that. You don't tend to see that too often. Martial, I think, made a really good start, but again, I think his career at Manchester United has been really up and down, and we're going to discuss kind of some of the reasons and maybe some of the questions that we have in relation to why has his career been so inconsistent at Manchester United.
Absolutely. I mean, Helly's saying here, was last season an anomaly? Joe, looking at the statistics, you have to say it probably was, because he's not really hit the heights. Last season was his best scoring season. Look, after the restart, he really looked like one of the best strikers in the league. He really did. He was pressing from the front. He was scoring some fantastic goals. It wasn't just, goals from outside the box. He was scoring more proper striker goals, something Ollie wants him to do. But I don't think that's instinctive for him. But all of these things considered, you're looking at what his record has been over the past 5 to 6 years since he's been here. And really from last season and his first season, he hasn't even touched double figures.
No, I think look, it's difficult because you look at last season and take the numbers out of it. We've seen him have other good seasons, haven't we? Like Ciaran said, I think he was brilliant when he first came in. I loved him. I was at the game for that debut goal against Liverpool, and I can tell you, limbs flied, mate. And even to the point where I think, look, details here, guys. He wore a pair of pink boots, mate. And I mean, I'm a grown man. I went out and bought those pink boots, mate, about a week after. I thought we had an absolute superstar on our hands. And so I think, you look at his first season, very good. I think I get mixed up with my seasons, but the second half of one of Jose's seasons, or the first half of one of Jose, he was very good as well.
Him and Rashford, it's before Sanchez come in and fighting for that left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fantastic. One thing I will say about him in his defence is he has been moved around a little bit. I think what managers have asked of him over time has been a little bit different. So he's been asked to be a left winger, he's been asked to be a centre forward, left winger, and you would think that, and I think this is fair enough to say, if you're a great player, that shouldn't really be a big problem for you, to be fair. But it is stark, and I think the biggest problem this year is if you remember after Project Restart, he was our number 9, he was our centre forward. That's one of the reasons why he scored the goals he did. This season, there has been the odd time that he's been asked to play on the left, and it's almost as if he's just forgot how to play that role. That's the thing that worries me the most, Haider. He looks so alien when he's out on the left, and some of his best performances in a United shirt have come playing from the left. So I don't know what it is. I think he's a player. I think some players get very affected by their off the field things that go on in their life as well, and there has been 1 or 2 off the field issues for Martial since he's been a United player. I do think he is affected by that, and that can, rightly or wrongly, be a problem for some players. But I mean, certainly when you look at the numbers he put up last season, that is an anomaly, because yes, he's had good seasons, but he's not scored goals and created goals like he had last year.
Absolutely. Aaron's got a good point here, and we are going to address this. So basically, guys, if you just jumped in, thanks for joining us today. We got a good question from one of our listeners, Cobb, and he basically, so on the Masterclass, you guys, if you listen to it, you'll know that myself and Rob turned around and said, sort of when he had competition, as Aaron's saying here, his 2 best years where he didn't really have competition. He's had competition. He seems to have shirked responsibility. He seems to have gone within himself. And I questioned this last season. I said, if there's someone coming in and, taking your shirt, for example, and you're allowing your performances to drop and you're allowing something like that to affect you, that's not the mentality you really want at Manchester United. Look, players aren't robots. Some players are different. It's what, you saw Nagelsmann the other day say that being a good manager is 70% man management. Something Ollie also says, he's a very good man manager. You've got to manage these personalities, so I don't want to downplay, what affects someone else might not affect another. But Ciaran, I'm going to start. So, guys, I'm reading out sort of the response by Cobb, and we're going to go through it. So, he doesn't believe that the argument about the competition is true. So he said, "Look, let's be blunt. He's in very, very poor form. So now I know it's not an excuse for his current form. More look back at how he's reacted to competition in his United career." So that's what we're going to talk about, guys. Please get your thoughts in there. We'll try and read that as much as possible. We want a big debate on this, because I think it seems like for a first time, Ciaran, that the fan base are actually quite united on Martial, that maybe his time is up at the club. And I've never seen this. Even people that like him think, you know what, talented lad, but I'm not sure he's the right person to be leading the line at Manchester United. But let's start with the first season, Ciaran. So Cobb said this: he came to United as a teenager, new country, new team, new language. Very, very fair point. We've got to take this into consideration. We give Van der Beek his dues that he's not performing. Martial was 19. He's asked to lead the line. And he was told publicly by Louis van Gaal he will be for the next manager and won't be starting. And what did he do? He ended up making himself the number 1 striker, moved Rooney to midfield, and became the top scorer. Talk to me, Ciaran, about that, because I'm not too sure. I don't remember Louis van Gaal saying that. I can't comment on it, but I don't remember him turning around and saying that he's for the next manager. He might have done. But this whole idea, when you're new to a league, we've seen a lot of players that come in and they're so effective because it's almost like you get the new manager bounce, you get this new player bounce. The defenders don't know how to defend against you. They've never played against you. You're full of confidence, that youthful exuberance. I mean, he was fantastic in his first season. We can't take anything away from him. I mean, talk to me about your thoughts when he first came in, because, I mean, that goal against Liverpool was fantastic. I really thought that we had a future Ballon d'Or winner. I mean, it was in his contract, but he looked like he looked almost like a young version of Thierry Henry at times with his finishing.
Yeah, that's who everybody compared him to. And it was one of those seasons where I think we had those, 2 seasons there where it just wasn't that great since Ferguson left. And this was like a little bit of hope for Manchester United fans. We got to see someone that we could actually be a bit kind of excited by, because you have to remember at this point, Rashford hadn't broken through. And to be honest, the rest of the team were quite dull, and it didn't really excite a lot of United teams. Now, where I don't agree with is the fact that, okay, Louis van Gaal may be said in the media that Martial may be for the next manager. What he's basically saying is not, I bought you for the next manager. It's the fact that when you hit your peak, I probably won't be the manager, which is normal. If we brought in Erling Haaland, Solskjaer could say the same thing. He could say, this is a signing for whoever the manager is in 5 or 6 years' time because of his age, because he was 19 at the time. So that's a normal conversation. It's not that he said, you're not starting because you're not going to be the best under me. That's completely false. The other thing of him being not that he wasn't going to start him, that isn't true. Anthony Martial played 31 Premier League games that season. By the time Martial joined, we had already played, 3 or 4? So the numbers don't add up. He was brought in to play. Maybe he wasn't going to be the central striker because Rooney was there. But if you asked any United fan at the time, everyone knew what was happening with Wayne Rooney. So everyone expected Martial to come in because it was this young kid and there wasn't really much else there that we could kind of hold our hats on. But again, he was fantastic that first year. But I think that in terms of some of the points he made, it's a little bit inaccurate, but the other points they made was fair. It's a new player, young player coming to the Premier League. How many of those do we see not do it? Like, just compare Timo Werner, who has come in and he hasn't been as good. And we expected a lot more out of him. You compare Martial's first season to Timo Werner, for example, and I think 100 people out of 100, maybe 99, there'll be one Chelsea fan in there that would pick Timo Werner. But you look at that first season and you can only commend him. And I think that's what, like I said earlier, that's what kind of set the level of what people expected from Martial.
Absolutely. I'm going to read out some of the comments. Kerwin is saying here, breaks my heart to say it, but maybe for Martial's own career's sake, he should leave if he cannot be successful next season. I don't see the logic in selling him right now. I think we're going to struggle. I know Joe spoke to Paulie on his show just before. I mean, look, he's on 250 grand a week, I believe, or something close to that number. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. We got here Jamie saying Harvey Barnes is a better winger. That's Martial's main position. Pedro Neto is better than Martial. I don't think they're comparable. I don't like to make those sort of comparisons. I love Pedro Neto. I think he's a wonderful player. But there's so many factors. I mean, if someone said to me Pedro Neto for 60 million, I'd say no. That's a lot of money for someone who's had not even one good. I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's not had more than one good season in the Premier League. We've got to be careful with these things because playing for Manchester United and playing for Wolves is very different. Wolves play purely counter-attacking football. United, you're expected to do a little bit more. So I don't think that's a very good comparison. But Joe, let's talk about the second season. And Jose came in, and the whole shirt thing happens. This is what Cobb was saying, which wasn't so much the shirt. It was more about the finishing top scorer. A new manager comes in, doesn't know you, takes your shirt and your spot away from you without really talking to you. That instantly set a tone of what he feels about you. And considering you were top scorer last season, that will be a huge blow to any 19 and 20-year-old. The thing is, right, would would Wayne Rooney have reacted the same way as Martial if he got his shirt taken off him? Because that's the way I judge it, because that's the standard here. This is Manchester United Football Club, right? The standards should be up there. If Wayne Rooney got his shirt taken off him, he would not have acted in that way. He would not have sulked. He would have gone out on that pitch and he would have worked twice as hard, and he would have played. He would use that rage. He would have fueled it and used it for great performances, because that's what Wayne Rooney did. Martial sulked. Now, I understand. For some players, it's maybe it's a sentimental thing, but to sulk like he did for that season, instead of proving to that manager that came in, Jose, that I'm Anthony Martial, this is what I can do. For me, that doesn't wash that excuse. And when I hear that, okay, look, if it was once and it was just that incident in his whole Man United career, I'd understand. You know what? You're 19 and 20, you got your shirt taken away. We've seen several times, and we'll go through them. This is my opinion. I know some people don't see it. We've seen several times that when the tide has slightly been against Anthony, or if someone else has come in, he has not responded in the way that you want to. It's a recurring theme. Now, that's a concern if you want someone to lead your line at the biggest club in the world.
Yeah. How often do we talk about players needing elite mentality, Haider? And I think this is the thing, when we've very rarely seen elite mentality from Martial. There's been a few times in games where you feel he's been ice cold and he's finished well and he's scored good goals in quite big games, and that's fair enough. But yeah, certainly issues around the shirt. I don't know if you remember, but around that time, there was quite a big event that happened in his personal life that we won't go into. And I did think at the time that the whole shirt thing was more of an excuse for what was going on off the pitch, to be honest. I thought it was more of a convenient excuse. And then if you look at the manager that it was that took his shirt off him, the number off him, he's not exactly going to be the kind of manager that's going to be like, oh, yeah, sorry, mate, fair enough. Put an arm around him and be like, there. This is a manager that demands strong character, strong personalities. So I don't know why Martial didn't look at that and think, look, I'm going to get nothing for sulking here. Absolutely nothing at all. I'm dealing with Jose Mourinho, a man who, doesn't suffer fools, wants these big personalities. I think that's half the reason why Jose's struggling now as a coach, to be fair, because he's not seeing and he's not working with the same personalities that he worked with when he first come into.
Yeah, they're not the same. They're not like Jose Mourinho comes in and Materazzi or John Terry. They'll run through a brick wall for you. Yeah, they aren't like that anymore. They go and have a little cry when they go home and play Fortnite. It's not the same.
Yeah. And you can make the same argument that Alex Ferguson might be in this. If he was still managing today, he may have the same problems, the same struggles. We don't know. I would argue that Ferguson was a better man manager, and he probably could deal with people like Martial better than Jose would. But we don't know. But that's the crux of the problem. The issue is today, Haider, you're absolutely spot on with what you're saying. You want more from these players. You want them to be stronger, but players of today are just different, I think, and you just don't see that from them. And things like that do throw them off. But I think you were bang on with what you were saying, Wayne Rooney. I don't think he would have maybe bothered so much. And with Wayne Rooney, we're talking about a global brand. Wayne Rooney is number 10. Wearing number 10 was iconic for him. He probably had a brand around it. I don't know. We know, obviously, Cristiano with his number 7, CR7 and everything like that. Wayne Rooney wearing number 10 as a brand was massive. But I still think he would have accepted a number change later on in his career, especially if you'd asked him to maybe go to 9 or something. I know he was an 8 when he first came. He wore number 8, didn't he, when he first came to United, Rooney? But then he moved to 10, but that was because they wanted him to be 10, not because he was giving up number 8 for somebody else. But yeah, I just think you got to be stronger than that. And, at that time, Martial hadn't really, he was a good young player, but he'd no right to say that he owned that United number 9.
And let's be honest, it's Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and Zlatan performed. That at the end of the day, whatever anyone said, Zlatan came in. And when Zlatan actually left, Joe, the dressing room crumbled for Jose Mourinho. We're not going to dissect Jose because he had to go. But reality is that no one could tell. I really liked when Zlatan was here personally. I loved the personality. That's what I wanted to see from a player. That sort of personality and leadership, fronting up to the challenge. I don't know if I want to call it sulking. I think that's a bit harsh. I don't want to be one of those that goes, oh, Martial sulking, because we don't know. I don't think he necessarily sulks all the time. I just think that I don't see that drive to take that absolute God-given talent, because he's so talented. He's more talented than Marcus. I'm convinced. His close control. He's got pace. His finishing. You know, I know he's having a bad season. I don't want to just focus. I'm talking about him as a player.
Yeah.
But you look at him and you think, mate, when's the light bulb gonna flick? When is it? Because you're gonna go 2-3 years and you're gonna waste that talent.
Yeah. Can I just say as well, Haider, to add to it, what I found quite sort of wrong about it all as well is you were given number 11, Anthony. Number 11 is an iconic shirt at United. That's a big shirt. You could argue that probably number 11 is almost as big as number 9 at United because, you know, we know the biggest shirt at United is number 7. We know that because of the icons that have wore it. United's number 9 we've never really had that sort of a number 9 that sort of that's my shirt sort of thing, worthy of almost retiring it. But number 11 was Ryan Giggs' shirt. So it's not like he was given a folly sort of squad number. He was given a really prestigious shirt.
Not like it was number 69 or something like that.
Exactly.
You know? He got number 11.
He wasn't given like number 19, like Danny Welbeck or, you know, something like that, you know, to follow up. But look, I just think it was just like you say. It was just. I think it was more of an excuse for other things that were going on in his life and in his career at that time, mate. But like I say, I don't want to get into that either.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like I said at the beginning, players aren't humans. So they are humans. They're not robots. Yeah. You know. So yeah, they are humans. You know, and maybe we should take that into consideration as well. I had a good point here, Ciaran, which I'm going to push towards you, and we'll go on to the third season. Guys, great comments, honestly. Really, really good interaction. The Green Devil, all attackers will suffer in the Jose system these days, to be fair. That's a very, very fair point. And Lukesh says something similar. Martial has been mismanaged for a long time. Not saying he isn't responsible, but he hasn't got to focus on any one proper position, except for last season. I think it's a fair debate. I mean, Ciaran, it goes on to when Romelu Lukaku came in. And you know, you're seeing a lot of revisionism with Romelu Lukaku. He looks absolutely like the Romelu Lukaku we saw at Everton. You know, more streamlined. He looks agile. He's suited to Italian football to a T. He's suited to Antonio Conte's system. He's playing with a manager that probably knows how to get the most out of him. Knows exactly how to build the system around him. He's playing with Lautaro Martinez up front. You know, it's a fantastic partnership. It's all falling into place. But he didn't see that at Man United. But, you know, when Romelu Lukaku was here, Martial and Rashford are competing for that left wing. So this is what Cobb is saying. So Jose made it clear Rashford was his preferred player. I don't ever remember that, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think it was ever a case of that. If anything, I think Jose managed that situation fantastically well in the first half of the season, where they were both, I mean, that's the attitude I want to see. Martial and Rashford fighting for that left wing spot. And 1 week, Martial was starting, he would score. The other week, Rashford would go and score 2. Then Martial would get a hat trick. Do you know what I mean? They were like almost that great sort of, you know, competition in the squad. We're seeing with Luke Shaw and Tellez. You know, their performance levels were getting shot through the roof. And what happened? Martial ended up taking the left wing spot over Rashford and made it his own, getting player of the month 2 months in a row before Sanchez was brought and messed things up for the whole club. Alexis Sanchez was a really bad buy. You know, we're looking back at the time, we all thought, right, that's the missing piece. He's going to go on the right wing. We still haven't sorted out the right wing problem. With, you know, we got young Diallo, but we thought this was actually going to be the move that pushed United to title challenges. It was absolutely shocking move. What Jose was doing, playing him on the left, I completely understand when you are competing for that left wing spot and Sanchez comes in. I get it. But what the difference between Marcus and with Martial is that Marcus took it in his stride and he worked hard. And Martial, he doesn't take that in his stride. So talk to me a bit about your thoughts during that sort of second season with Jose Mourinho, where while it started so promisingly, it really unraveled, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I guess to go back on some of the points as well, is I kind of bring up the mentality, and I had a conversation probably about a week or two ago about how only some players in Europe have that elite mentality that it takes to really make it at a top club. You see it in Bruno Fernandes. You've seen that's the big difference when we look at the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid. They don't have all the players that had that mentality that the likes of Ronaldo had when he played for Madrid, when you saw Zidane, Figo, the old Ronaldo as well. And that's my biggest issue with Martial. When we look at the season when Lukaku came in. The reason why Lukaku came in is because Jose Mourinho wanted to play in a way that suited him. He saw what worked with Zlatan Ibrahimovic and just needed somebody to bring in that their conversion rate was better. And at that time, Romelu Lukaku's conversion rate was better. And that's why he was brought in. And at the end of the day, it worked because that first season, Romelu Lukaku played, I think it was about 34 or 35 games and scored 16 goals in the Premier League. That's what you want from your striker. And we complained that season that, well, there was times when Lukaku wasn't great, and we mentioned about Rashford and Martial, but there's a reason Mourinho likes Rashford. It's because he did everything he could for the team. And there was a reason why Mourinho wanted to sell Martial, because the reason he wanted, and it would have been the wrong decision to sell him, but the reasoning behind it, there was some accurate things that Mourinho was saying, that he wasn't as much of a team player. They needed that right wing sorted. The initial idea was to get Willian in, but look, it's a tough one when you actually look at that season, because people saying, well, Martial didn't get to play much. Well, he did, because he played 31 games in the Premier League. So it's not like he played 15 games and Rashford played 15 games. They almost played in every single game in the Premier League. Now, the difference between them is that at the end of the day, Martial only scored 9 goals. From one of your main attackers, that's not good enough. And that's the biggest problem. When you saw Rashford come in, you could see him actually impacting the game. And the problem with Martial is, and I've said it so many times, he's probably one of the best dribblers on the team. Going at a player one-on-one is what he used to do in that first kind of season or two. And then he stopped doing it, and he started just kind of trying to do a pass and then try and dribble past the player. And the problem is, when he doesn't score, he's not that effective, because we've seen it recently that he's done a little bit better in terms of holding up the play. So that means that he adds.
His hold-up play is very good.
But before it wasn't. And that's what he's added to it, where he actually adds something to the team. But before, in this particular season, he wasn't in a position to do that. So all he would do is receive the ball and have to dribble past someone and try and create that way. But the problem is, Rashford's always been someone that has brought other players into it. And that's the problem. I find that when you actually look back at that season, there was a reason Martial wasn't the starter, because you look at the players and you looked at how they performed. And I don't even have to go back and look at stats to know that in terms of the attacking intent, Romelu Lukaku was one of our best attacking players that season. Unfortunately, it did kind of slow down, and people kind of went on him because his first touch wasn't great enough for a striker. But at the end of the day, while he scored 16 goals in the Premier League the first season, he scored 12 the second. Now, we're complaining about Martial because 3 out of the 6 seasons that he's been at United, he scored less than 10 goals in the Premier League. And that's the problem. I'm only saying that now because we're more than halfway through the season and he only has 4 goals in the Premier League. And that's the problem. We all attacked Lukaku that second season, he scored 12. So I think we do have to take context into consideration here, is that, okay, you might not be in the best position, but you still have to do what's best for the team. And if you're an attacking player, you have to score goals. And that's really what's important. Like, look at Wayne Rooney. He wasn't always playing as a striker. He was messed around as well. But what did he do? He did everything he could for the team. Yeah. Think about when Tevez and Berbatov came in. He was shoved out onto the left wing, but you didn't see him complain. And every single season he delivered with goals. And unfortunately, Anthony Martial hasn't done that. And that's the reason why we have these debates now. And the fact that there's 3 out of the 6 seasons he's been at United that he's kind of underwhelmed it's a red flag.
And you expect more when you spend 50 million for a player. I don't want to always bring in price tags, but at the age of 18, you spent that money. It's not his fault, the price tag, but he's obviously highly rated. Look, in the context, when you bring up context, I mean, that's a great point about Lukaku. Lukaku got absolutely slated. Yeah, he hit double figures, I'm pretty sure, in his 2 seasons at United.
Yeah.
2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, 16 goals and 12 goals in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Lukesh agrees with you here, Ciaran, fair point. That's the thing, isn't it? We give certain players an absolute, torrid time. I'm saying we as a fan base. I'm not saying we did that. And yet others get a much more of a lenient ride. Why? Because their face fits, because people like them more. And this is the problem. You got to be objective about the players. They all play for Man United. You should respect them all the same. You can have favorite players, but that shouldn't cloud your judgment on who you like and who you don't like. At the end of the day, a lot of people like Bruno Fernandes. I mean, quite rightly so. But you can turn around and say Bruno Fernandes's performances of late haven't been that good. But what does he do? He affects games. And I do want to talk about the affecting games in a sec. But Joe, we're going to finish off with the last point here. So the 4th, 5th season, so Oli comes in. First thing he does is make Rashford the number 9 and moves Romelu Lukaku to the wing. What happens? Martial ends up claiming the number 9 spot over Rashford, who was Oli's preferred number 9 when he came in. Again, I'm not too sure about that. I've always thought that Oli saw Marcus as a left winger and Martial as the number 9. But you can correct me if you're wrong. And ended the season as top scorer, says Martial. So Cobb is saying, so this idea, Martial, does not rise to competition. I honestly don't know where it comes from, as history suggests he does. I think we've shown history doesn't really suggest that. But that's fine. Everyone's got opinions. Looking at that season last season, we saw the Martial that we've been craving now for 5 years. And what he was so good at last season was his movement. His movement was brilliant. Yes, he still drifted into left channel, but he gave defenders something to think about. And I think about some of the key games as well. His movement, his hold-up play. I believe it's a Southampton game where, was it Obafemi scored that last-minute 2-2, the one at Old Trafford after Project Restart, where that's when it kind of teams started to figure us out. But he was world-class in that game. He really was very, very good. And he showed last season as well, for me. I mean, he was probably United, with Bruno Fernandes, United's best player. Absolutely fantastic end to the season. You're thinking, right, he's really going to kick on now. I wouldn't count Marcus being there as competition, because Marcus has been there the whole time that he's been there. I'm talking about players that have come in with a direct threat to Martial's role and his position. So we come to the summer. A 33, now 34-year-old, let's be honest, crocked and injured Edinson Cavani comes in on the final day of the transfer window. And it's really a case of, I mean, we were all excited. We did a show about this, but we were all really excited. And we thought, right, if Cavani can get fit, he's going to give Martial a lot of competition. Mason, you can argue, is not ready. Although I think now, I don't agree with the notion that maybe Martial's a better player when firing on all cylinders. But Mason, right now, you've got to pick players on form. You can't pick players on past what he's done in the past. And that's not fair. That's not meritocracy. Right now, if you're picking the number 9 for me, you pick Mason Greenwood over Anthony Martial because he's in form and he deserves to be picked. And that's how you have to do it. But looking at, sort of Martial with Cavani, that is another example for me of how someone coming in with a bit of quality, he hasn't risen to the challenge. We've seen it with Lukaku. Yes, we shifted to left wing. That's fine. But Cavani coming in has, for me, knocked his nose out of joint a bit. I don't think he's lazy. I don't think he's sulking. I'm not seeing that drive. Show us, because when you're playing to your full potential, you're better than Cavani.
Yeah. Hey, first of all, what I want to say on this is I think this whole argument about Martial rising to these challenges over all the years he's been at United is a little bit folly, because is it him rising to these challenges, or is it that the people who were in his place have actually just dropped off or gone away, if you know what I mean? So when he came to United, he came in and the centre forward would probably be Wayne Rooney, would it? Correct me if I'm wrong, would it still be Wayne Rooney? Wayne Rooney was getting towards the end of the peak of his powers, we knew that. So, he dropped off until Martial comes in there. You talked about the fact that he replaced Rashford as a number 9. He didn't replace Rashford as a number 9 because he was better than Rashford, because he'd rise to that challenge. He replaced Rashford as a number 9 because we realised that Rashford's not very good at playing at number 9 at the time. Same with, he come back in, obviously, when Lukaku went, because, obviously Solskjaer didn't fancy Lukaku. It wasn't that I think he saw so much in Martial that he thought he could get rid of Lukaku. I just think
Haaland, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So
that shows it all what Oli thinks of Martial as a long-term option. Exactly, he wanted Erling Haaland, and he was devastated when United didn't get him.
The fact on the last day as well, Haider, like getting back to this season now, like you asked me, that Oli felt he needed to go and get a 34-year-old on a free contract who hadn't played for 6 months as well also tells you just what he thought about his striking options. And that's not just, I'm not just having to go at Martial when I say this, because Rashford's the same. We can't trust Rashford as a number 9 either. So this is not, I'm not taking a name at Martial here, but what I'm saying to these people who were probably part of Martial FC, who think that he's rise to every challenge, I would argue that the people that he was being challenged by more dropped off to allow him to look better, if you know what I mean. That's how I'm looking at it with my 2 sources. So, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but it's just, I did say after the first sort of couple of weeks of the season that if Martial didn't start very well, I could see Cavani, playing more for United and becoming the proper number 9, because at the time I thought Martial I'd probably rather him be on the left wing anyway, so he'd play over there or he wouldn't play at all, in my opinion. And it's just so happened to be that that's how the season's materialised. Cavani has just been better than him when he's played, and he's just shown more. He can give the team more, especially in the shape that we play, and that is a damning indictment, I think, on Anthony. I think this season is the final nail in the coffin just because of the fact it's Cavani and what Cavani has done. Because I just think that this season more than ever, forget Zlatan, because we know Zlatan at his age and what he can do. That we knew all about his quality. We know about Cavani as well, but Cavani, to be fair, coming over here and having the impact on this team that he has, I think this has been the thing that has shown Martial's true colours more than anything, I think. And I think that's probably what will seal his fate as a United player.
Yeah, very good points. Ciaran, I'm going to come to you with a question, but I want to read out. So Jamie's saying here as well, Martial ignores Ollie's shouts. He says, move, Anthony, some movement. He doesn't move. That's one of the biggest problems that I've had with Martial, is that his movement's not good enough. And I said, Ciaran, I said this in the summer. As a number 9 for Manchester United, this is after his great season, I said. And by the way, Martial used to be my best player and my favourite player for a very, very, very long time. I think maybe the season when Lukaku came in, the second season, I started to get a bit frustrated with Martial. I was like, look, when are we going to see, more from you? When are we going to see more of that insane talent that you have? But I don't think it's a case of he's ignoring Ollie. I really just think that possibly we've seen him suffer racial abuse. We've seen him look unhappy. I honestly think maybe, even he's a bit sick of being in Manchester as of now. I think maybe he's even thinking maybe that it's time for a change. I mean, Cohen's saying here, a lack of movement is killing him. Absolutely. The lack of movement is killing United's attack at the moment. But the thing is, we've seen him do it, Ciaran. We've seen his movement last season. He can do it. But this is a problem. You cannot rely on someone who's streaky like that in terms of his goals and his performances. You can't rely on players to win titles for you when they're not there, when they turn up 9 out of 10 5 times in the season, but the rest of the time they're 5 and 6. You got to be 7 out of 10 every week with the smatterings of 9 out of 10. There's too many players in this squad that are passengers. There's too many, and unfortunately, he's been a passenger most of the season. But when you look at some of the statistics, Ciaran, and I'm just going through them as well. Look, I don't want to go too far into them because sometimes when you go too far into stats, you don't need to go into stats to look at it and think, yeah, he ain't playing anywhere near his level. But if you look at, for example, his shooting, it's pretty much the same as last season. If you're looking at his shots on target, they're about 0.22. Last season, 0.45 per game. And you're looking at his shots as well. I mean, last season he had 79 shots. He's had 40, so it's not like he's shooting any less. But he's nowhere near as effective. And I think one of the biggest problems for Martial is that he's not effective. And when you've got one player in your front three that's not firing, when it's your number 9 and you're trying to win a title, that's a serious problem. Ollie's giving him chance after chance after chance. And there's a good comment here from Aaron saying Rashford has been great recently, but he's contributed despite performances dropping off. Something Rob said on the Masterclass, and I agree with this, that it's okay if you're scoring goals. Because, you know what, you can say, Bruno's the same, he's scoring and assisting. Okay, your performance is not good, but you're contributing. You're providing something for the team. Martial's playing poorly and he's not contributing. You're number 9. You have to contribute to this team. And I want to bring this question to you. It's from the Green Devil. I actually disagree with this. I don't disagree with the first part, which you said is 17 Premier League goals enough to where you want to be. No, it's not enough. I agree with you there. But you're saying Bamford already has 13 in his first season at top flight, and Salah having a bad season already on 17, only playing devil's advocate. It's just incomparable. You got to take into account systems. You got to take into account style of play. You got to take into account the roles that you want from these players. Mo Salah is one of those players who plays poorly and he scores. He's a goal machine. Martial is levels below that. I don't think you can compare Salah. Bamford for me, Ciaran, again, is incomparable because everything's going through Patrick Bamford. Invariably, when Leeds don't score or don't win, Bamford's not on the score sheet. So, would you agree with that? I mean, or do you think it's more comparable? And you can say Bamford's got 13, Martial's got 4. Is that a fair metric to judge Martial?
No, I don't think so. They're different types of players. I think if you're comparing styles of attackers, you need to have someone that's not that out and out striker, because look, Martial's not. You don't see him running in behind. Like, you don't see, like, while we see him holding up the play, it's really just to give it to Bruno, to give it to Rashford to get in behind. So I find it's difficult to do that. But look, again, stats are fine, and you mentioned some of the things that it's fairly similar to what he was at last season. But then you have to compare the team, because we've scored the most goals in the Premier League this season, and he scored 4. So, like, at the end of the day, while he might be producing the numbers that he was last season, well, then that could just mean that, like, if the team's producing more now this season than they were last season, and Martial's not producing more, if everybody else's numbers are going up and his aren't, and his are going kind of down a little bit, well, then that's a big problem. It could be a coincidence that Cavani's come in and he's not hit all the heights, but, like, you look at it, and Mason Greenwood hasn't scored all the goals, but you see him contributing.
His creativity's improved so much. Yeah,
and that's what you want. It's like, it's for me, and the Erling Haaland thing was a big indicator. And I said from the moment those rumors came in, I'm like, okay, Martial's not going to be here long term, because you can tell. I said it before this, and I think everybody who I was talking to on videos and stuff, apart from probably you guys, that I was crazy for saying Martial's not going to be here in the next kind of 2 seasons, because I don't see him as a striker for United, because everybody loves Martial. And look, there's a reason to like him, because on his day, he's an excellent player. But I've said it for the past probably 18 months that he doesn't suit what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants in this United team. He wants a player.
Let's talk about a little bit about the role of striking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's team, because I think that's where people perhaps don't look at. They just think Martial. They don't look at the role that he's actually playing. I mean, you have Martial playing the same role as Cavani, but Cavani's playing it infinitely better, because Cavani's first thought is hold up the ball, lay it off, and go for goal. He just gets into the box, and he's got such clever movement. Martial drifts to the left. I mean, talk about that a little bit more, because I want you to compare. Just tell listeners about, because you've spoken about this before, but when you spoke about Holland and what Holland does, and then when you compare it to Martial, there's a big difference to what both players do in that role. Not one doesn't mean Martial's wrong. It just doesn't really fit what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants and what he did at Molde.
Yeah, because you can go back to Molde. Even, look, I don't expect any of the listeners to have to go back and watch a whole game of Molde, but go back and just watch some of the highlights of Haaland's goals or his assists, and just watch his movement. Don't even look at the goal. But what he does is when they don't have the ball, he's the first one that leads the press. Martial did that last season, but he hasn't done it well this season. Second thing is, you'll see Holland get the ball, hold it up, play it off. This season, you see it's played off to Jadon Sancho, and he doesn't wait. He goes and makes his move, very similar to Cavani. The difference is, it doesn't take a genius to look at it, but when Cavani doesn't have the ball, that's actually where he's most effective as a striker. And that's what I keep saying about Martial. And it's the first time, because we don't have fans, that people are actually hearing what Solskjaer wants. The fact that he said that he needs more movement, because that's what Cavani does. If you watch Erling Haaland, that's what he does for Dortmund. You look at the goals he scored in midweek, all of it was to do with movement. You look at the goal that he scored at the weekend, while it was controversial, it was because of movement. But that's the whole point. And the goal that Haaland scored at the weekend, I don't know if you guys saw it, but basically there was an injury for the opposition team, and the referee didn't blow it up, and the teams continued on. Haaland got it, went past two players, and just scored because he doesn't care about anything other than scoring goals. And that's what you want. If it gets blown up and said, no, it was a free kick or a player's been injured, then fine. But at least he's gone in and he scored the goal. For me, Martial is just, he's too passive. And I've said it so many times, he's not a number 9. And while he can hold up the ball and he's learned that, that's brilliant. But for me, he's still not, because the position he takes is the exact same position you see Rashford in. It's in that left wing now, while Rashford plays wider. Yeah, like Rashford plays wider because he wants to get in behind, and Martial's like, it's kind of between basically the edge of the box. That's where he kind of, in the corner of the box, that's where he kind of hit most of his positioning is. But that's not where we want him. We want him kind of going in behind and doing something different. The problem is Martial's attacking philosophy is the same. It doesn't change. He comes, he tries to hold up the ball, gets the ball to his feet and tries to dribble past the player too. When have you seen Martial without the ball actually try and run in behind the defender or run in, stop and change direction? You don't see that. And that's what Solskjaer wants. You've seen it in every single team he's had prior to Manchester United. He's wanted that striker to do that. He asked it when he was doing his coaching badges at Manchester United for the academy. He had players doing it as well. It's the reason why I say that you look at what Mason's kind of doing now. You're actually seeing some of those improvements. Even just in the last game, you're seeing Mason actually be more central, make some of those movements. It didn't always work out because the ball didn't get to him, but you're actually seeing those improvements off the ball. Well, for now, 6 years, I don't think I've seen that improvement from Martial, and that's a big worry. And it's why, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be at United in 2 years' time. I think he will get sold. United are probably going to have to be pretty creative. If they want to bring in someone like Sancho, it might be one of those where maybe you have to offer Martial going the opposite way, and maybe that's one way to bring a price down. But I think you have to do what the manager wants and what the manager's working towards his philosophy. It was the point we made two or 3 weeks ago, that recruitment has to match what the manager wants to see on the pitch. And it's clear the manager wants a striker. We've seen all the rumors of us being interested in strikers. We brought in Cavani, and really, you look at, if you were picking a player to play as the striker, you probably go Cavani number 1, Greenwood number 2, and then Martial number 3. And that's a problem for a player that last season was, everyone would have said he's our starting striker.
Yeah, fantastic points. I'm going to read out a good comment here from James. Martial hasn't got the movement that Cavani has or the intent that Holland has, and followed that up with, a lot of people don't know that Holland was quite short. I didn't know that growing up, so he relied more on his movement and pace than his height. Green Devil saying, "Here's all your points are so right, lads, but in the roundabout way, you just explained why Martial shouldn't be here." And that's what we're going to get to now, because look, I said maybe a month ago on the Masterclass that if Martial isn't in your plans, you need to go. And Rob had a go at me, but actually he said to me the other day, he's like, well, now we're at the stage where it's not about FIFA or Football Manager or anything like that. You've got to be honest. Like, you've got an asset there who is 24 years old. I mean, it's kind of shocking. He's still so young, 24, 25. He's got resale value. You could recoup most of it from not all the money you spent. You can put that money towards a player in the squad that actually is going to fulfill the role that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants. And that's why I say, if you want a striker, you want to go and get Sancho, and you don't think Martial, if he's sitting now at number 3 at striker, which is where he would be for me, then make the move. There's no point him sitting there on the bench, or, once you lose, this is what I've noticed with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Joe. Once he loses faith in someone, that's it.
Yeah.
You've seen it. I think there's an element that he's lost a little bit of faith in Axel, I would argue. I think while he likes Axel, I think he's very reluctant to go and play him a bit more. You've seen it with Van der Beek. I think right now he's lost a little bit of faith in Van der Beek. Do you expect Martial to be in last chance saloon now. Look, I don't want to make this about bashing Martial, because the thing is this, and I'm going to say this now, clip it up, whatever, do what you want with it. I'm saying this right now. I expect Martial to go on a run between now and the end of the season at some stage and score 5, 6, 7, in maybe a run of 10 games or so. And I'm fully prepared to see.
Hope so.
Got more faith than me, I'll have to say.
So, I'm convinced it will happen because that's what he does. And then you'll have the same lot coming out saying, oh, well, look, see, he's still got it. No, that's not good enough for me. If my number 9, Manchester United, we've grown up with, look, I'm 25, so I don't remember the 90s. Obviously, I was only a little kid. But, Ruud van Nistelrooy, goal machine. Wayne Rooney, Robin van Persie, even Tevez scored goals. But when Tevez didn't score, he contributed. He pressed like an absolute, pit bull.
She was the only one who wore number 9, mate.
Yeah, that's true. And you take all those things into consideration. So, Joe, when you're having a look at it, for me, even if he goes and scores 5 goals, I'm not convinced, because you can't have a streaky player playing number 9 like that. And that's why I said on the Masterclass, I said that if United, they've still got problems with creation. They really have got issues. You take Paul Pogba outside. Marcus Rashford isn't a creator, in my opinion. He's an inside forward, and he goes for goal. Mason Greenwood is improving his creativity, but he's not going to get you multiple assists a season. Jadon Sancho is. United have got a creation problem. They haven't got a wide creator on the right. You can bring Holland in. United are creating a lot more chances than they have done in the past. But you're still not solving the main problem, where give these forward service. And that's where I do have sympathy for Martial, for Cavani as well. A lot of times this season, I mean, you look even at the West Brom game, you're feeding off scraps. And it's not easy playing in a team like that. But you got to do the basics. You got to work hard. You got to press. You got to make sure your movement is of the highest of quality. And something like that with Martial, has it?
Yeah, and mate, look, to be honest with you, it's a tough. He's not a number 9 hater. I mean, I'm not going to throw your comment out the window what you just said about creation, but what makes me angry at the moment is when I see him play as a centre forward, and every time the ball goes left for United, he's there on top of Shaw and Rashford. Now, we've created so much this season from that left-hand side. Luke Shaw's been brilliant there, putting crosses into the box. Rashford, we've said before, he's had a fair share of assists. We're a proper United team at the moment. You yourself doing those runs.
Joe, you're cutting out, mate. Hold on. Jump out and come back in. I'll come to you, Ciaran. It's just frozen on the screen. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a 5-star review if you enjoy our content. But Joe's just frozen on the screen. It looks like he's
it's very funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Ciaran, I'm going to come to you though. I mean, let's finish with this, and then hopefully Joe can come back. He can have his final word. But if it comes to summer, I think Ollie, it'll be very interesting to see what Ollie does. Does he start him again? I think I'll start him against Sociedad. I think I would probably try and play him into form in that competition, but I don't trust him in the Premier League games at all. So, all those things considered. Oh, is he back? No. All those things considered, would you be looking to move him on in the summer?
Personally, it depends on if you can get a deal in for a proper centre forward, because, again, Cavani probably comes back for a season, but you want the long term in there. If you can bring in your centre forward, it doesn't have to be Erling Haaland. Obviously, that's the one that people want, but that's going to be a really hard deal to do. But if you bring in your centre forward, I think, you do have to get rid of him, because we've heard all the reports this week that United want to try and shed salary. Now, if you can bring somebody else in, his Wi-Fi ran out. If you can bring somebody else in that can do his job to a better ability than Martial, then look, I think, like I said, I've had a feeling since probably last summer, so before his really good season, that I thought that he wasn't going to be here long term. Now, last year, then everybody kind of would have went against that because of how well he played. But I've always had that feeling that I don't think Martial is going to be at Manchester United long term. There was no reasoning behind it. There was no like rumors about it, but it was always something that crossed my mind that I just don't feel like he's going to make the whatever it is, the 10 years being at Manchester United. He's had a good career, but I think he just doesn't fit. And it's one of those that, look, we said it before, if Erling Haaland came in that January transfer window, I think Martial's already gone. And that's probably a big thing. And that's kind of the inches that you look at when it comes to squad building. That if United get Erling Haaland done, if they get the Jadon Sancho deal done, we're not even talking about this because we're not worried about how well Martial's playing because we don't need him. So that's the big thing. The problem is now other than Cavani, there's not really a striker that's kind of going out there and scoring all these goals. But if we did have that striker, I don't think people would be worried about what Martial does, because if you're not performing, especially at Manchester United, and this is what I like about Ollie, he's ruthless. So if you're not performing for him, well, he doesn't care. He'll sell you. We only bought Lukaku, and then suddenly we sell him to Inter Milan. It doesn't matter. We just bought him for how much it was, 80 million or something like that.
And we took a hit on it, really, didn't we? I mean, we did well to get almost 60 million, 65 million out of it. But,
but
we shipped him out. He wasn't part of the plans.
Yeah, exactly. And if Martial isn't going to be part of the plans, and look, the worst indictment for a manager is when they have to tell you to move. If the manager has to tell you to move as a striker, that's really, really bad, because that should be happening no matter what. You don't have to be a Carlos Tevez, but you should have. Yeah, but you should be doing. If the rest of the attacking players are moving and you're the one that's not, and the fact that you're getting taken off in a game that really you should have played, it was Newcastle. You should have been playing that game. And you're getting taken off mainly because, look, it happened, I can't remember exactly the minute, but it wasn't too far after Solskjaer was asking him to move. And again, that tells you a lot about, number one, the mentality of the player. Number two is how Solskjaer is kind of, I think the thread is wearing very thin between Solskjaer and Martial. He's already started to play Greenwood more, play Cavani more, play Rashford more. So, yeah, Joe and Olaf is at it again. Your Wi-Fi is back there, Joe, so that's always good. To kind of finish it off, I just think that, for me, I've never had the idea that Martial is going to be here long term. And the more and more rumors that come up about a striker and another wide player to come in, I think it just kind of shows that it's not. And look, we're going to be talking about some of the kind of younger players coming through the squad. There's a lot of young talent coming through Manchester United at that position.
Absolutely, that's a great way to end. James saying it, Joe's internet slower than Maguire. Oh, that. I don't even know that.
It's to his fridge.
It's not, mate, you guys won't know your southern softies, mate. I'm living up north, and it's absolutely blowing the tail up here.
Did you want to switch off the Wi-Fi because you've been on those dirty websites again, Joe?
Yeah, that's probably what it is, mate. Yeah, that's more than likely, mate. I've got
no dinner for you tonight.
Virus.
All I will say, guys, I know we're shutting up now, but enjoy me while I'm here, because I probably won't be here for much longer. But it's been great fun.
No, Joe, I want your final word. on Martial. This isn't about bashing him. And James says here, he looks like he's got zero confidence, snatching at every chance. It really does seem like that. It's sad to see because, it's not like, no one should ever take joy out of this. And there are some fans that do that when they see Rashford do particularly poorly. They because they like Martial. It's not about that at all. It's sad, but you have to be objective and you have to take the biased views out of it. You may love Martial and think he's talented. Like, I think he's really talented, but the facts are there that he's not performing, and he's had many a chance to do that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't stay at a club like Manchester United. Why they've been so successful over the years? Because Fergie was ruthless, absolutely ruthless. Varane wasn't working, and he shipped him out to Chelsea. Martial is talented, but if it's not working and you're not fitting the system, and you can talk about the system all the time. I hear people say, "Oh, well, he hasn't got managers to get the most out of him," but that's just shifting the blame.
Yeah,
Ollie has many good qualities. He has a lot of flaws as well, and there are times you wonder, You know, especially on the front foot, is he getting enough out of some of these lads? But when it's basics like working hard and movement as a number 9, that's not an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That's not a system problem. That's a drive problem. That's a application problem. And I hope Anthony turns around. But I'll give you the final word.
Now, look, Haider, 3 managers have worked with Anthony Martial, and 3 managers at different stages have had issues with Anthony Martial. At what point does the player have to start taking some responsibility? We're not talking about 3 amateur managers either. We're talking about 3 of, we're talking about we've got 2 of the greatest coaches in Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho in history, and then obviously Ole, and you know, he's done pretty well since he's been here. So at what point does the player have to start taking responsibility? And before I got cut off, I was just going to say, hey, he's just not a number 9, mate. I mean, if you're a number 9 in this team at the moment, it infuriates me that every time that ball goes left for United, I see Martial coming over towards the left and getting involved with Shaw and Rashford. Now, if there has been one area of our team that has been pretty creative this year, it's been from that left side. You know, Luke Shaw has been delivering some wonderful balls into about, even Rashford. We've touched on the fact that, you know, his numbers may have flattered him at times this season, but, you know, his assists are up as well. So when those 2 guys have got the ball, if I'm Anthony Martial, I'm a number 9, I'm just running in the box, get on the penalty spot. You know, that's where your chances are going to come, especially from that left-hand side. So I don't understand what it's all about. It just makes United so unbalanced, because you see the 3 of them over there trying to create this little triangle, and whoever ends up with the ball on that left-hand side anyway is only going to be looking to pull it back into the penalty area with no number 9.
No one's in the box.
Yeah, no one's in the box. So that, you know, it's just he's just not a number 9. Look, you know, I like him. I wouldn't say I've ever been part of Martial FC, but I have been one of these people that wanted to give him time and wanted him to do well and wanted him to be successful and thought there's a player in there. But I'm not sure now how much longer we can wait on him, because, you know, if we're serious about winning things, you know, we know the shelf life of managers, 2-3 years. Ollie's going to be going into his 3rd season. You know, if he wants to start winning trophies and proving he can be a Manchester United manager, he's going to need a more reliable striker than that.
Well said, guys. Thank you very much for this fantastic podcast. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that as well. I know we focused just on Martial, but we just want to take a deep dive into, you know, the sort of the history of his time here and give as balanced a view as possible. I think we all agree here that he's fantastically talented. He's very, very talented. I mean, I'd argue, you know, when he came out of the Monaco Academy, I know people are going to laugh at me, but I'm talking about talent-wise. You know, there wasn't anything too dissimilar in terms of reputation with Mbappe when he came through Monaco. That's how highly, I mean, look, he went to Manchester United for 50 million. You know, and while he's shown some really good glimpses of it, and he had a really good season, end of season last season, but he needs to do it more. So, look, hopefully he can hit some form. Manchester United need it, because that forward line has not been firing at all. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Joe and Ciaran, for joining me, as always, on Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the Football Masterclass. Have a nice week, and we will see you next time.